So today we're going to talk about flow brooding. The birds that we're going to be looking at today are 13 days old. The first thing that we need to do when we are talking about flow brooding, we need to prepare for the birds before they actually arrive. So for preparation, we need to make sure that we start from heating the house. As you can see in this house, they have used sacks to use as ceiling. The sacks have also been used as inside walling, and within the wall there are also curtains outside. This is to ensure that the heat that is produced is also kept inside to manage the cost of heating. Today, the system that is used on this farm and which is shown is called a tubular heating system. It has got a system that is outside that heats up using coal. The system is also temperature controlled so that when temperatures start dropping inside, the heating system clicks in and then the heat is produced to ensure that the temperatures are always constant inside the house. So in small scale production systems, other heating systems can be used. For example, the gas heater can be used. Also, you can use infrared lamps. Those can also be used at a small scale basis. Another form of heating system that can be used is mbauras or braziers. These can also be used in small scale systems or even in some commercial setups. However, normally it should always be managed that there is no smoke that is produced where charcoal burners or braziers are used. So in systems where the tubular heating systems are used, the advantage is that there is less or no smoke that is produced, which might affect the ventilation or the breathing of the birds. This then reduces incidences of diseases such as ascites. So in this system, as you can see, the ceilings and the curtains that are used can be adjusted. So this is an advantage because during brooding, you want to balance between the heating and also the ventilation. When the beds are placed, normally we want to preheat 24 hours or even 48 hours before, should it be, say for example in winter, the times that we have just come out of. In winter, sometimes it is necessary to heat 48 hours before because you want to make sure that the ground temperatures have actually reached about 29 degrees, so that when the birds come, the ground temperature is already at a good temperature and they will not be cold. So to actually manage the ground temperature, we also encourage that bedding is added. So on this farm, they use wheat straw. And the good thing that is here and shown is the wheat straw is also in small pieces or small particles. This is actually very important because it then will allow that whenever the droppings are produced, they can then be absorbed better. If the grass or a wheat straw that is used is very long, then the absorption is also difficult. So it is important that the bedding is put and it is also cut into smaller particles. Other bedding material that can be used during brooding include grass, but like I said, it also needs to be cut into smaller pieces. You can also use shavings, not sawdust. Sawdust is not recommended because it is dusty, it will affect the respiratory system of the birds. So it is important that we use shavings instead of sawdust. Also, shavings are encouraged because they also have a very good absorbency. So using shavings is very recommended. With bedding, when we are doing the preparation, it is important that the depth is also about 10 centimeters. So as you can see, I am actually trying to get to the bottom. it should be about 10 centimeters or more, as in this case. In cases like in winter, you want to make sure that the bedding helps as a insulation for the coldness. Therefore, it should be at least 10 centimeters or the depth of a pen if it is put into the ground. It is important that when you are doing brooding, you manage the balance between your ventilation and your heating. If the birds are cold, you will see that birds will huddle together. Huddling is not good because as they huddle, they use a lot of their energy. And therefore, if they are using a lot of their energy, they will not grow and they will not have good weights. It is also important to watch the birds so that they are spread out well. If they are spread out well, it will mean that they are comfortable and then they will eat. It is important that you also manage the ventilation so that there are no drafts. If there are drafts, the birds will also go to one side and then that will prevent them from eating. So management of the pullets when they are placed is very important. Managing the temperatures and the ventilation so as to make sure that the birds are comfortable. When the birds are placed, another important thing is that you measure their intake. How do we measure their intake? First of all, when birds are placed, these birds, like I said, they are now 13 days old. Therefore, they've already removed the paper that initially should be in the house. So the paper that is put in the house should be put to ensure that you increase the surface area where birds will eat. At the same time, there should be trays in the fowl run. The trays will be used to also ensure that the birds have got good access. They have got good access to the feed. For example, these are also the other trays that can be used instead of the square feeders. So you can either use the square feeders or you can also use the round feeders. As a way of measuring the intake of the birds, it is important that we look at the crop. So the crop is the position where you see the feed goes into. So when you are measuring the intake, you feel the crop. If the crop has got a porridge-like material, it means that the chick has consumed the feed and also found the water. If the crop only has particles that are hard, then it means that there is only feed. If in the crop it looks flat and you can only feel liquid material, then it means that there is only water. Crop tests should be done 8 hours after the chicks have arrived. You should also then do after every 8-hour interval. At 24 hours, you also need to have achieved 95% of the birds should now have feed and water. The things that you can look at if you see that you have not achieved the correct crop test score, you would need to then look at your temperatures. Maybe the environment is not conducive for the birds to eat. For example, if the chicks are cold and they're huddling together, they will not eat. If it is too hot and they are panting and opening their wings, then it will mean that they are hot and they will not eat as well. Sometimes, maybe in the preheating, you might have overheated the water and they cannot access to drink the water because it is too hot. It will be important then to actually remove the water and replace with clean, cool water. If the water is also too cold, you will find that the birds will not drink water. So it is important to actually manage the temperatures in the room so that the water and the environment is conducive for the birds to eat. After 7 days, you can then randomly always do spot checks to check for the intake and crop test.